You think danger wears a snarl? It doesn't. Real danger smiles. It blends in. It compliments your shirt, remembers your birthday, and claps when you win. But behind the warmth hides calculation. The most dangerous people in your life aren't the ones who hate you out loud. They're the ones who quietly gather data while pretending to care. Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. They warned, deception begins with comfort. You relax around what feels familiar, and that's when your awareness dies. So, understand this. Your downfall never begins with an attack. It begins with distraction. Someone laughs at your joke, hands you coffee, nods in approval, and behind that moment, they're taking notes. Not every smile is a signal of friendship. Some are rehearsals for betrayal. If that truth unsettles you, good. Awareness was never meant to feel comfortable. It was meant to keep you alive. You call it coincidence. They call it reconnaissance. And they appear where you are. Same cafe, same park, same timing, and you shrug it off because politeness trains you to. But Stoicism teaches, observe without emotion. The wise don't panic. They perceive. And what you perceive matters now. These people don't stumble into your path. They orbit it. They memorize your habits, your moods, your triggers. Every accidental encounter is a data point. They study you like a test they plan to pass. That's not paranoia, that's pattern recognition. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be alert to the subtle movements of men's souls." He meant this exact thing. The threat is not the stranger who shouts. It's the familiar presence that lingers in silence, learning your rhythm until it owns it. So, sharpen your attention. Don't dismiss the small signs. The universe whispers warnings before it screams them. And when you start noticing repetition where there shouldn't be any, you're not crazy. You're awake. There's a war happening around you. And it's not fought with weapons. It's fought with whispers. Most people never hear it until they've already lost. A true enemy doesn't destroy you with a blow. They destroy you with suggestion. One rumor, one misinterpreted comment, one subtle doubt. That's all it takes to make others question who you are. The Stoics warned us. Reputation is fragile. Perception is power. A clever manipulator knows this and uses silence as their sword. They won't accuse you outright. They'll let others draw the conclusions they planted. That's how reputations collapse quietly, like a wall eaten by termites. You'll notice people pulling away, opportunities fading, conversations stopping when you walk in. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. But here's your advantage. Awareness breaks the spell. You can't stop lies from being spoken, but you can stop reacting to them. Stay factual. Stay still. In a world of noise, calm is the loudest truth. Here's a brutal truth. The person ruining your name doesn't hate you for what you did. They hate you for what you represent. You became a mirror that reflects what they lack, and their ego can't stand it. So, they start the slow bleed, the whisper campaign, the "I'm just concerned about them" conversations. And you won't even notice it at first, because it hides behind fake empathy. Stoic philosophy teaches that no man is harmed except by his own opinion. But when your world starts to shift, friends grow distant, colleagues look uneasy, you must not spiral. That's what the saboteur wants. They feed on your confusion. Your weapon is composure. Gather facts, document patterns. Protect your reputation without defending your ego. Remember, time is the ally of truth. Seneca said, "Time discovers truth. Time heals what reason cannot." So, hold your peace and guard your focus. The louder the liar becomes, the more their mask begins to slip. Not every helping hand is clean. Some are dipped in venom and disguised as care. The most dangerous kind of enemy is the one who calls you friend. They'll comfort you when you're tired, agree with you when you doubt yourself, and tell you exactly what you want to hear. But listen closely. Real friendship challenges you. False friendship flatters you. The Stoics called this corrupt sympathy, the act of pretending to share your struggle only to weaken your guard. These people don't want connection. They want access. They'll ask intimate questions, gather details about your pain, your plans, your past, and call it concern. It's not concern, it's collection. Every secret you share becomes a weapon stored for later use. So, slow down. Observe who listens to you versus who learns you. True friends protect your absence. False ones prepare to exploit it. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Do not let the sweetness of words seduce your reason." Remember that charm without consistency is camouflage. There's a certain type of person who thrives on your vulnerability. They present themselves as a healer, a listener, a guide, but every confession you make feeds their hunger for control. They turn empathy into extraction. The Stoics taught that wisdom begins when emotion no longer blinds perception. Yet these people blur that line deliberately. They'll share their own vulnerable stories to create false intimacy. But it's not connection, it's calibration. They're testing how much of yourself you'll hand over. And once you do, they'll use your story to paint themselves as your savior or your victim, depending on what benefits them most. That's not empathy, that's manipulation wearing a halo. Epictetus said, "He who seeks your tears seeks your weakness." Never forget that. True empathy strengthens both sides. False empathy drains one and feeds the other. So guard your soul the way you guard your passwords. Not everyone who listens deserves your truth. Once they have your trust, if they don't strike, they steer. They start shaping your decisions, your perceptions, even your language. They'll say things like, "I just want what's best for you." But what they really want is control over how you think. They plant small doubts, gentle suggestions, and tiny criticisms disguised as care. Soon, your choices start to reflect their opinions instead of your own. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "Show me what a man admires, and I'll tell you who controls him." Control rarely begins with force. It begins with influence. These manipulators don't break your will, they bend it. They feed your need for approval until obedience feels like gratitude. So, you must reclaim your sovereignty. Pause before you seek validation. Ask yourself, is this my thought or theirs? Freedom of mind isn't loud, it's quiet and deliberate. And the moment you start thinking independently again, their power begins to die. Control doesn't always arrive as an explosion. It seeps in like water through stone, wearing you down molecule by molecule. They don't attack your confidence head on. They chip away at it, disguised as realism. "I'm just being honest," they'll say, right before delivering another cut. One comment here, a raised eyebrow there, and soon your certainty feels like arrogance. Your strength feels like stubbornness. That's how erosion works, slow, invisible, and devastating. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when you allow someone else's poison to color your thoughts, your identity starts to fade. Their power grows each time you second-guess yourself. But here's the counterstrike: awareness plus discipline. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop letting their tone define your truth. The Stoic doesn't fight every insult. They fortify their mind against corrosion. Your peace is not their playground. Reclaim it. Once your confidence starts to waver, they begin phase 2, separation. Isolation is their favorite weapon because alone, you're easier to influence. They'll quietly turn your allies into skeptics, your friends into distant observers. Little by little, they plant tension in your relationships. "I don't think she really supports you. He's been acting different lately. Maybe you should take some time for yourself." And you'll believe them, because they sound calm, reasonable, protective. But what they're doing is cutting every lifeline that could expose their game. The Stoics taught that the wise surround themselves with men and women of virtue, those who live truth, not gossip. So, if your circle starts shrinking mysteriously, if your connections feel strained for no clear reason, look closer. A real friend brings peace, a hidden enemy brings confusion. Seneca wrote, "The first step to freedom is to refuse false friends." Reconnect with reality before you find yourself standing in silence, surrounded only by their shadow. Once you're isolated, they move from your world to your mind. They'll provoke, withdraw, and then comfort, spinning you in emotional circles until you can't tell the difference between safety and anxiety. One day you'll feel valued, the next, invisible, and that contrast becomes addictive. It's a psychological chokehold built on your need for peace. The Stoics saw this clearly. The man ruled by emotion is easy to rule altogether. These predators know that control isn't about force, it's about rhythm. They set the tempo, you dance to it. When they withhold affection, you chase it. When they return kindness, you call it love. But Stoic strength is found in stillness. You must stop moving to see the game for what it is. Every time you react, you lose ground. Every time you pause, you regain it. Calm isn't weakness, it's defiance. Remember, emotional chaos is their language. Silence is yours. They'll tell you, they're just being real. But what they're doing is rehearsing cruelty under the mask of truth. Their words cut deep. Then they blame you for being too sensitive. That's how they twist the blade. They make you feel guilty for bleeding. Stoicism teaches that truth without virtue is tyranny. Seneca wrote, "To speak truth is great, but to speak it kindly is greater. These manipulators weaponize bluntness, turning their lack of empathy into a badge of authenticity. And you start to question yourself. Am I too emotional, too weak, too defensive? No, you're just waking up to abuse disguised as wisdom. Remember, genuine honesty enlightens. Manipulative honesty humiliates. When someone's truth consistently leaves you smaller, quieter, and unsure, that's not truth, it's domination. The Stoic path demands courage, not compliance. You are not obligated to endure cruelty in the name of clarity. Guard your peace as fiercely as they guard their mask. Nothing binds the soul like invisible debt. These manipulators know it well. They'll help you in small, strategic ways, lend you time, advice, or even money, and remind you subtly that you owe them, not in words, but in tone, in posture, in timing. Every favor becomes a hook, every kindness a quiet chain. Before long, you start saying yes when you want to say no, just to avoid seeming ungrateful. But Stoicism draws a clear line between gratitude and servitude. Marcus Aurelius warned, when you receive kindness, return only virtue, not submission. You owe no one your freedom. The manipulator's generosity is never free. It's an investment in control. They'll keep you feeling small by making themselves indispensable. The solution? Reclaim your autonomy piece by piece. Start saying, thank you, but I've got it. Independence doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Never let someone's help become your leash. Once they sense your gratitude turning into compliance, the next phase begins. Testing. They'll cross small lines to see how much discomfort you'll tolerate. A joke that stings, a touch that lingers, a comment that feels just a little too personal. Then they'll watch your reaction carefully. If you flinch but say nothing, they'll push further. If you confront them, they'll laugh and call you dramatic. This is how predators calibrate control, through micro-violations disguised as accidents. Epictetus taught, no one harms you without your consent, and that consent often begins in silence. The Stoic response isn't rage, it's clarity. When someone crosses a line, name it calmly and early. Every boundary you defend strengthens your peace. Every one you surrender feeds their power. The goal isn't to argue, it's to withdraw your permission. Remember, people don't just test limits, they measure value through what you'll accept. Teach them your worth without words. Once they know your limits, they begin shaping your fear. They'll never threaten directly, that's too obvious. Instead, they use uncertainty as the weapon. One day, silence. The next, cold disapproval. You start guessing what version of them you'll face, adjusting your behavior to avoid their displeasure. That's the cage. Fear doesn't need chains, it needs confusion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. But manipulators invert that truth. They convince you their moods control your peace. Every frown becomes a warning, every sigh a signal, and soon, you're no longer living by reason. You're surviving by anticipation. That is how freedom dies, not in one dramatic moment, but through daily self-censorship. The Stoic answer, detach from their storms. Let them rage, but don't become their weather. Calm isn't passive, it's rebellion. When they can no longer predict your reaction, their control begins to crumble. Fear loses power when you stop negotiating with it. When control through fear becomes too obvious, they shift tactics again. Now they play the protector. They'll say things like, I just want what's best for you, or I'm only hard on you because I care. But their version of care always costs you something. Your independence, your time, your self-trust. This is emotional imprisonment disguised as guidance. They convince you that without them, you'd make terrible decisions, that their judgment is your safety. The Stoics warned of this subtle enslavement. Epictetus said, he who seeks another to guide his will becomes a slave. Though he wears a crown, remember that true guidance strengthens your freedom. False protection weakens it. These people will make you doubt your instincts, second-guess your plans, and question your worth until obedience feels like love. That's not mentorship, it's manipulation. The cure is internal authority. Stop outsourcing your judgment. The one who owns your decisions owns your destiny. Once you surrender decision-making to them, they start dismantling the foundation of your confidence. Not all at once, piece by piece. They'll undermine your ideas with phrases like, are you sure that's smart? Or you're overthinking again. At first, it sounds like advice. But over time, it conditions you to mistrust your own judgment. You stop acting unless they approve. And that's the point. Dependency disguised as guidance. Stoicism warns that the greatest enemy lives in our own thoughts once they've been corrupted. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to fear." These manipulators don't want control over your actions. They want control over your perception. When you doubt yourself, they win. So start rebuilding from within. Make small, deliberate choices without their input. Fail if you must, but fail freely. Freedom requires imperfection. Confidence doesn't come from being right. It comes from daring to think without permission. When psychological control no longer feels secure to them, hostility starts leaking through the cracks, but they'll never call it aggression. They'll label it humor, stress, or just joking. You'll notice sarcasm that cuts too deep, jokes that humiliate you in public, small outbursts that end with, "Relax, I didn't mean it." This is not humor. It's testing your threshold for disrespect. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You become what you tolerate." Every time you excuse their cruelty as personality, you teach them that harm is acceptable if disguised well enough, and they will push further, because each laugh you force, each apology you accept, tightens their hold. The Stoic approach is not to fight fire with fire, but to extinguish illusion with truth. See the behavior for what it is, hostility wrapped in charm. You don't owe anyone access to your calm. Respect is not negotiable. Once it's mocked, it's time to walk. When insults stop working, they switch to guilt. It's their most reliable weapon because it targets your morality. They'll say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're really going to treat me like this." Suddenly, defending yourself feels selfish. That's the trap, turning your integrity into a leash. The Stoics warned that emotion without reason becomes slavery, and guilt is the chain that binds the kind-hearted. These manipulators prey on empathy. They twist your goodness until your boundaries feel cruel and your silence feels wrong. But guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It's a signal that someone is trying to rewrite your values. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Apply that inwardly. If your spirit feels heavy after every interaction, it's not love, it's control. True care liberates. Manipulative guilt suffocates. Release the weight. You owe no apology for protecting your peace. Once guilt weakens your defenses, they move to complete dependency. They make themselves the center of your emotional gravity, your comfort, and your chaos. You begin to crave their approval like oxygen. Because they've trained your nervous system to associate peace with their presence, that's not love, that's conditioning. The Stoics would call it enslavement by attachment. Seneca wrote, "He who depends on another's happiness loses his own." These manipulators keep you exhausted on purpose. The more tired you are, the less you think, the more you comply, you start apologizing for your feelings, dismissing your instincts, and justifying their harm because they're having a rough day. But exhaustion is the clearest proof you're living under emotional tyranny. Freedom begins where fatigue ends. Withdraw your energy from their chaos and reinvest it into your clarity. Rest isn't laziness, it's recovery. A quiet mind can see what exhaustion hides, the truth of who's been draining you. When you've grown too numb to guilt, they deploy chaos. Now, their moods swing without reason, kind one day, cruel the next. You never know what version of them will appear, and that's exactly how they keep control. Predictability breeds confidence. Unpredictability breeds dependence. You start tiptoeing, reading their face before speaking, adjusting your tone to keep the peace. That's not awareness, it's survival mode. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The nearer a man comes to calm, the closer he is to strength." But they want the opposite, to make you live on edge. This is psychological conditioning. Confuse, exhaust, dominate, and yet, the Stoic path offers a countermeasure, stillness. When chaos becomes their tactic, serenity becomes your rebellion. Do not mirror their instability. Speak less, observe more. Unpredictability only works when you react. A calm mind becomes their mirror, and what they fear most is seeing themselves clearly in your silence. When unpredictability stops scaring you, they escalate again. Now come the emotional threats, veiled, quiet, and perfectly timed. "I don't know what I'd do without you. If you leave, you'll regret it. No one will ever care like I do." These aren't expressions of love. They're psychological traps designed to tether you with fear or guilt. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus wrote, "When another holds your peace of mind, you have surrendered your freedom." Threats don't always come as violence. Sometimes they come as despair, pity, or manipulation of your empathy. you'll find yourself comforting the very person who's hurting you, apologizing just to stop the tension. But remember, peace bought with submission is not peace. It's captivity. A Stoic doesn't negotiate with emotional blackmail. They act with reason, not reaction. Step back, observe the manipulation. Let silence be your no. You can't save someone who feeds on your fear when all else fails. They attack your perception itself. This is gaslighting, the final weapon of psychological warfare. They'll deny what you saw, twist what you said, and reframe every event until you question your own memory. That never happened. You're too emotional. You always misunderstand me, little by little. They rewrite your reality and make you doubt your sanity. The Stoics warned that losing your mind to deception is worse than losing your life to danger. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment of it." And that's exactly what they aim to corrupt, your judgment. When they can control how you interpret events, they no longer need to control your actions. But you can reclaim your mind through evidence. Write things down. Ground yourself in what you know. Truth, once recorded, becomes your shield. Memory is power. Clarity is rebellion. Every manipulator depends on your confusion. The moment you see the pattern clearly, they're power fractures. This is the Stoic break, the quiet moment when awareness replaces fear. You stop arguing. You stop explaining. You stop needing their validation. That's when they panic, because they can't manipulate what they no longer control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Detachment is your armor. You don't need a dramatic confrontation. You need consistency of peace. When you go silent, they'll rage. When you stay calm, they'll escalate. Don't flinch." Your composure exposes their chaos. The Stoic doesn't seek victory through domination, but through discipline. The goal is not to hurt them back, it's to never let them rent space in your mind again. Walk away, not in anger, but in mastery. They lose the moment you no longer react. Freedom begins when your peace becomes non-negotiable. When you finally step out of their shadow, the silence will feel strange. You'll mistake it for emptiness, but it's not. That quiet is your strength returning. You've endured psychological war and learned the Stoic truth. Your peace is your fortress. Your awareness your sword. Seneca said, "He who conquers himself is mightier than he who conquers armies." You don't need revenge. You need clarity. The people who tried to manipulate you were your greatest teachers. They revealed where your boundaries were weak and where your worth was forgotten. Now you rebuild, not with anger, but with wisdom. Protect your routines. Guard your energy. Choose relationships that challenge your mind but never threaten your soul. When your instincts whisper, listen. They speak the language of truth. The Stoic path is not about avoiding darkness. It's about walking through it with your eyes open. So stay calm, stay sharp, and never again confuse comfort with safety. You are awake now. Stay that way. If this message stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Awareness is the first step toward transformation, but action is what makes it real. Every manipulator, every painful lesson, every betrayal, it all points back to one truth. You must master yourself. Take your power back by mastering your thoughts, your emotions, and your peace. That's the Stoic path. So today, decide to rise above what tried to break you. Choose clarity over confusion, strength over fear, and discipline over chaos. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments below what part of this video spoke to you most. Your reflection might be the insight someone else needs. And if this message helped you, gently tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this truth. Thank you for listening. Stay disciplined, stay grounded, and remember, real power begins within. You're watching Stoic Motivation,